Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love America. You know, as kids, my brother David and I used to love to go over and visit one of our neighbors by the name of Claire Condon. Mr. Condon was a bit of a legend in our small town. You see, he had served our country in World War I and World War II. Then, like so many other veterans, he came back and served his community. You know, over the years, we used to love to see him down at the concession stand at Legion Baseball. He'd help out in our church, and he was a leader in my Boy Scout troop. In fact, I can remember over the years, before Memorial Day, he would organize me and all the other scouts as we would go through and put up flags on the graves of the fallen. It was impossible to be around Mr. Condon and not share his love for God and country. You know, I think back 30 years ago, Mr. Condon's American Legion post helped me attend a program called Badger Boys State. And it was there that I learned about state and local government. You know, along the way, it was interesting. I got the chance to be selected to represent Wisconsin at a program out in Washington, D.C. called Boys Nation. And there I met another veteran, a Vietnam veteran from Georgia by the name of Bob Turner. Now, Bob and all the other veterans that ran that program not only taught us about the federal government, the national elections, they shared their love for our country. And they inspired within me the importance of public service when it comes to defending our liberties. Veterans like that remind me that what makes America great is the fact that America is a can-do kind of country. Unfortunately, we have a government in Washington that just can't quite seem to get the job done. You know, Washington, or as I call it, 68 square miles surrounded by reality. Well, the good news is it's not too late. We can turn things around. To do that, we need new, fresh leadership. Leadership with big, bold ideas from outside of Washington. The kind of leadership that knows how to get things done, like we've done here in Wisconsin. Since I've been governor, we took on the unions and we won. We lowered taxes by $2 billion. In fact, we lowered taxes on individuals, on employers, and property owners. Property taxes today are lower than they were 4 years ago. How many other governors can say that? Since I've been governor, we passed lawsuit reform and regulatory reform. We defunded Planned Parenthood and passed pro-life legislation. We enacted castle doctrine and concealed carry so we can protect ourselves, our families, and our property. And we now require a photo ID to vote in this state. If our reforms can work in a blue state like Wisconsin, they can work anywhere in America. As I travel this country, though, I got to tell you, I hear from people who say they're frustrated with politicians telling people what they're against and who they're against. Americans want to vote for something and for someone. So tonight, let me tell you what I'm for. I'm for reform, growth, safety. I'm for transferring power from Washington into the hands of hardworking taxpayers in states all across the country. That's real reform. I'm for building a better economy that allows everyone to live their piece of the American dream. That's pro-growth. And I'm for protecting our children and our grandchildren from radical Islamic terrorism and all other threats in the world. That's true safety. My record shows that I know how to fight and win. Now more than ever, America needs a president who will fight and win for America. So first, let me tell you why I'm for real reform in Washington. You see, our big, bold reforms here in Wisconsin took the power out of the hands of the big government special interest and put them firmly into the hands of the hardworking taxpayers. Today in this state, people who are actually elected by local property taxpayers literally run our schools. And that means we got rid of things like seniority and tenure. That means we can hire and fire based on merit and pay based on performance and put the best and the brightest in our classrooms. Now think about that. 4 years later, graduation rates are up. Third grade reading scores are higher. And Wisconsin's ACT scores are now second best in the country. Our reforms work. That just goes to show that government closest to the people is generally the best, which is precisely why we need to take power and money out of Washington and send it back to our states in key areas like Medicaid and transportation and workforce development and education. Sadly, though, Washington seems to think that success is measured by how many people are dependent on the government. We measure success by just the opposite, by how many people are no longer dependent on the government. Yeah. We understand that true freedom and prosperity do not come from the mighty hand of the government. They come from empowering people to control their own lives and their own destinies to the dignity that is born of work. Of work. That's what we stand for. Now, as a kid, my first job was washing dishes at the Countryside Restaurant. Then I moved up to the big time. I started flipping hamburgers in high school at McDonald's to save up for college. My dad, who you heard before, was a small-town preacher, and my mom was a part-time secretary and bookkeeper. My grandparents were farmers who didn't have indoor plumbing until my mom went off to junior high school. My dad's dad was a machinist for 42 years at Barbara Coleman down in Rockford, Illinois. My brother and I have thought back throughout the years, and we've realized we didn't inherit fame or fortune from our family. What we got was the belief that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you can do and be anything. That's right. You see, that's the American dream, and that is worth fighting for. When we help people, adults are able to work, transition from government dependence to true independence. We help more people live that piece of the American dream. We have a program right here in Wisconsin that requires people to be signed up for one of our employability training programs, one of our job training programs before they can get a welfare check. And now, as of the budget I just signed, we make the same requirement to make sure people can pass a drug test before they get a welfare check. That's right. Now, you can only imagine what the defenders of the status quo thought when I proposed those reforms. They said I was making it harder to get government assistance. My reply, no, I'm making it easier to get a job. And isn't that what it's all about? Now, you know, strong families are important in this whole role as well. You see, we know that children are raised in a household with both parents involved. They're more likely to finish school, to get a good job, and to live a life free of government dependence. We need a federal government that will actually stand up and support strong families by getting rid of the marriage penalty and by getting rid of policies, welfare policies that make it hard for fathers to play an active role in the lives of their children. We need to encourage families. I know, thinking about my own family, I know for me, both my parents were so important for David and me as we grew up as kids. And now for Tonette and I, we try to be good role models for Matt and Alex, and they've turned out pretty well, haven't they? They're pretty impressive to watch. We're so proud of them. And I think about that, and I think about Matt, and I think about Alex, and I think about all the others in their generation. And for them, I want them to grow up in a more free and prosperous country. That's really about the American dream there. Now, to ensure that prosperity, we need to be for a pro-growth economic plan that enables our individuals and our families to earn, to save, and to achieve their piece of the American dream. Now, there's a real contrast out there. Instead of the top-down, government knows the best approach that you hear from so many in Washington, we need to build the economy from the ground up in a way that's new and fresh, organic and dynamic, that says, as long as you don't violate the health and safety of your neighbor, go out and start your own career, build your own business, live your own life. You see, that's freedom, the kind of freedom that's the cornerstone of the American dream. And so we've got a plan to help more people live that dream, a plan that will help more people create more jobs and higher wages. And you know what it starts with? We need to repeal Obamacare once and for all. We need to repeal the so-called Affordable Care Act and put patients and families back in charge of their health care decisions, not the federal government. Many of you here know when I first became governor, I literally allowed the state to join the federal lawsuit against Obamacare on my very first day. We need a president who on the first day will call on the Congress to once and for all repeal Obamacare entirely. Then we need to rein in the out-of-control federal regulations that are like a blanket on the nation's economy. Sure, enforce common sense, but let's get rid of the bureaucratic red tape. As governor, I called for a moratorium on new regulations. We can do the same in Washington, and then we can repeal all the other bad Obama regulations to get this economy going again. Next, we need to put in place an all-the-above energy policy that says we're going to use the abundance of what God has given us here in America and on this continent. You know, that's right. We are an energy-rich country, and we can literally start refueling our economic recovery. We need a president who on day one will approve the Keystone Pipeline. That's right, approve that pipeline and put in place a plan to level the playing field for all their forms of energy. And then we need to help people get the education and the skills that they need to succeed. Because we know if we do that, we can help people find careers that pay far more than the minimum wage. Here in Wisconsin, we reformed public education. And we provided more quality choices. Quality choices for families, because you see, I trust families and I trust parents to make the right decision for their children. I believe that every child, regardless of zip code or background or what their parents does for a living, I believe that every child deserves access to a great education, be it at a traditional public or a charter or a choice or a private or a virtual or a home school education. Every child deserves access to a great education. That's why I want to work, and you know what? Along with that, I want to make sure we have high standards. But those standards should be set at the local level. No Common Core, no nationwide school board. That's why I'll work so hard to take power and money out of Washington and send it back to our states and our schools where it's more effective, more efficient, and more accountable to the American people. Now think about this. If you were to take $1 out of your purse or your wallet, where would you rather spend that? In Washington or at your child's school? I'd rather spend it at your child's school, and if you give me the chance, we're going to send those dollars back to help your child at your school. And then we need to lower the burden on our taxpayers so you can keep more of your hard-earned dollar. We need to do that for individuals. We need to do that for individuals as well as job creators, because we need to make our job creators competitive again in the world so they can bring more jobs back from overseas to put more of our fellow Americans back to work right here in America. And you know what? We can do it. We can do it because we did it in Wisconsin, and we can do it in Washington. Now, some people wonder why I spend so much time focused on lowering the tax burden here and why I want to do it in Washington. Well, some of you know that Tonette and I like to shop at Kohl's, right? So over the years, I've learned if I'm going to go buy a new shirt, I go to that rack that says it was $29.99, and now it's $19.99. And then we go up to the cash register and we get out the insert from the Sunday newspaper, you know, the little scratch-off one there. Or maybe we get the flyer we got back at home, right? Where you get 15 or 20, or if you're really lucky, 30% off, right? You know what I'm talking about. And then as the clerk is ringing it up, Tonette scoops into her purse and pulls out some of that Kohl's cash. And next thing you know, they're paying me to buy the shirt, right? We're not really, but it seems like it, right? So how does a great company like Kohl's make money? They make it off of volume, right? They make it off of volume. You see, they could charge that higher price and a few of you could afford it, but they lower the price, broaden the base, and they make more money off of volume. That's what I think about your money, the taxpayers' money. You see, the government could charge you a higher rate, and some of us could afford it, but if you lower the rate, broaden the base, we expand the volume of people who can participate in the economy. Years ago, we used to call that, a similar plan was successful under President Ronald Reagan. And back then, we used to call it the Laffer curve. Today, I call it the Kohl's curve, because I believe you can spend your money far better than the federal government. And when we do, the economy will get a whole lot better. To prosper, however, we need to live in a safe and stable world. That's why I'm for true safety. The Commander-in-Chief has a sacred duty to protect the American people. In my lifetime, the best president when it comes to national security and foreign policy was a governor from California. Under his leadership, we rebuilt the military. We stood up for our allies. We stood up to our enemies. And without apology, we stood for American values. That led to one of the most peaceful times in modern American history. Sadly, today, under the Obama-Clinton doctrine, America is leading from behind, and that has us headed towards a disaster. Think about this. We got a president who drew a line in the sand and allowed it to be crossed. A president who called ISIS the JV squad, Yemen a success story, and Iran a place we can do business with. Iran. Think about that. When my brother David and I were kids, I can still remember we used to tie ribbons around the tree in front of our house during the 444 days that Iran held 52 Americans hostage. One of those hostages was Kevin Hermaning, who grew up down the way in Oak Creek. Kevin was the youngest of the hostages, a Marine who'd just been assigned to serve at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. Kevin Hermaning is here today with us. Kevin knows that Iran is not a place to do business with. You see, Iran hasn't changed much since the day he and the other hostages were released on President Reagan's first day in office. Looking ahead, we need to terminate the bad deal with Iran on the very first day in office. We need to terminate that deal on the very first day in office, put in place crippling economic sanctions on Iran, and convince our allies to do exactly the same thing. Earlier this year, President Obama declared, he proclaimed that the greatest threat to future generations is global warming, climate change. Well, Mr. President, I respectfully disagree. The greatest threat to future generations is radical Islamic terrorism, and we need to do something about it. We can start by lifting the political restrictions on our military personnel already in Iraq and empower them to help our Kurd and Sunni allies reclaim the territory taken by ISIS. Because you know what? On behalf of your children and mine, I'd rather take the fight to them instead of wait till they bring the fight to us. We need to acknowledge that Israel is an ally and start treating Israel like an ally. There should be no daylight between our two countries. That's why early this year when I went to Israel, I not only met with the Prime Minister, I met with the opposition leader to let them know that if I were president, there would be no daylight between the United States and Israel going forward. We need to stop the aggression of Russia into sovereign nations. You see, Putin believes in the old Lenin principle that you probe with bayonets. If you find mush, you push. Under Obama and Clinton, Putin has found a whole lot of mush over the last few years. The United States needs a foreign policy that will put steel in front of our enemies. We need to stop China's cyber attacks, slow their advances into international waters, and speak out about their abysmal human rights record. And we need to have the capacity to protect our national security interests here and abroad and those of our allies. That begins by rebuilding the defense budget by going back to the levels proposed by Secretary of Defense Gates. We need to honor our men and women in uniform by giving them the resources that they need to make us safe, and going forward by giving them the quality and timely health care that they deserve when they return home. But most of all, the best way we can honor them is by fighting to win. You see, this is important. Our goal should be peace, but there will be times when America must fight. And if we must, Americans fight to win. Going forward, the world must know that there is no greater friend and no worse enemy than the United States of America. America is a great country. It's a great country. And you know what? We just have to start leading again. It's not too late. We can do it because we've done it before. Think about it. Veterans like Claire Condon and Bob Turner remind me that what makes America great, what makes us exceptional, what makes us the greatest country in all of the world has been all throughout our history. In times of crisis, be it economic or fiscal, be it military or spiritual, there have been men and women of courage who've been willing to stand up and think more about future generations than they thought about their own political futures. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those times in American history. And so, after a great deal of thought and a whole lot of prayer, we are so honored to have you join with us here today as we officially announce that we are running to serve as your President of the United States of America. Tonette and I want our sons, Matt and Alex, and all the other sons and daughters like them, to grow up in a country that is as great as the country we inherited. Americans deserve a president who will fight and win for them. Someone who will stand up for the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Someone who will stand up for our religious freedoms and all of our other constitutional rights. Someone who will stand up for America. You see, it doesn't matter whether you come from a big city or a suburb or a small town. I will fight and win for you. Healthy or sick, born or unborn, I will fight and win for you. Young or old or anywhere in between, I will fight and win for you. Over the years, I've met some amazing people, many of whom have come here from other places around the world. I got to tell you, to a person, the people I've met like that tell me the reason they came here was not to become dependent on the government. No, the reason they came here was because America is one of the few places left in the world where it doesn't matter what class you were born into or what your parents did for a living. In America, you can do and be anything you want. That's the American spirit. You see, in America, the opportunity should be equal for all of us. But the outcome, well, that's up to each and every one of us here and across this great country. That's why we just took a day off to celebrate the 4th of July and not the 15th of April, because in America, we celebrate our independence from the government, not our dependence on it. That's why I love America. That's why we love America. And that's why working together, we can fight and win for America. Thank you for coming out. God bless you all for being here. God bless our military, and may God continue to bless the United States of America.